Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Carly Gray. I'm here with my colleagues, Masil and Alicia, as a part of AIDS United and representatives for the Melanated Movement Fund. And we will go ahead and get started with the presentation. Alrighty. On to our disclaimer. There is a recording in progress, so these slides will be available to you all in PDF form after you attend the event. And just like last time, we hope to have our YouTube upload version of this so you can revisit it within the next several business days. Just fingers crossed for us that we get it uploaded immediately. And if you need any urgent assistance as far as re-watching this, you can always email me, Carly Gray, cgray@aidsunited.org. And yes, mute yourself, use the chat box. All questions, save them till the end. Once again, these are my colleagues. We are representing AIDS United and the Melanated Movement Fund. And of course, we are delighted to be here and we can jump right in. So this is the timeline that we're moving along for the webinar today. A brief review of the objectives, our purpose, of course, what those requirements and restrictions look like going forward as you all are in the next phase of the application process for the Melanated Movement Fund. We are revisiting that timeline, and then we get into some of the fun part, which is a Q&A, where we get to hear from you all, and we will leave you with any information you may need to get in contact with us going forward. So, the objectives of the webinar. We are making sure we're all on the same page about what the Melanated Movement Fund is, who we seek to serve, and who we want to complete this project as representatives of ourselves, AIDS United, and the overall mission of the fund. We really want to make sure that the requirements and restrictions are clear before you choose to proceed in submitting the next steps, although we encourage you to do so and look forward to seeing your applications. And of course, we want to make sure everyone's on the same page about what the process will continue to look like and our upcoming deadlines and, of course, notifications. Of course, AIDS United is dedicated to ending the HIV epidemic in the United States through our various pillars of policy, communications programs, and capacity building. And we are dedicated to making sure people who are underserved in this community are seen and uplifted. And Melanated Movement Fund is another prong of how AIDS United seeks to do this. And so moving forward, we will get into our purpose specifically as the Melanated Movement Fund at AIDS United. So, of course, we are targeting Black women and girls across the United States. We realize that there are so many routes to how we can continue to end the HIV epidemic in the US, how we can continue to educate people, and of course, how we can continue to spread the message that you can thrive while living with HIV. And so through these different facets, we have arts and advocacy, community, education, and then of course, addressing those social determinants of health as routes to take within the Melanated Movement Fund. So let's get into the requirements and restrictions. So we do expect you all to participate in evaluation. So there would be different characteristics that we are making sure we take note of that can really benefit your organizations, benefit the overall storytelling of Black women in the United States, and really put a footprint into what data can look like when it's in the hands of people who we consider experts, and that's people on the ground and people with lived experience. So we will offer technical assistance throughout this process. It is okay if you are unfamiliar with data collection or different platforms or things of that sort. I promise there's not a lot of math involved, and we are just seeking to gather some information that benefits us all. Moving on, we talked about that technical assistance briefly, and this looks like attending quarterly meetings with us, the team here, Alicia, Masil, and Carly. And we will also have a grantee convening in the fall of 2024. So not too long after the grant period gets started, we get to see each other in person and really convene on what this vision can look like going forward and prepare ourselves, the technical assistance team, and you all as well, on how we can succeed throughout the Melanated Movement Fund process. And going forward about this wonderful timeline, I will pass it to my colleague, Marcel.
Thank you so much, Carly. And here are the activities and the time frame as well as deadlines. Grant payments will be split in half in 2 installments. Half of the award upon signing of the grant will be happening once again it's signed. And finally, the remaining half of the award upon submission of each interim report noted below. We will have a welcome webinar for those funded grantees, July 31st of this year. Participation evaluation activities, including completion of the baseline, interim, and final reports, will be due July 31st of this year. And in addition to the interim and final reports noted below. We will have an in-person all grantee convening. We will let the funded grantees know of location once that is determined, but we do have a date, which is October 31st, 2024. And as mentioned, us, AU, will be supporting the costs for travel expenses for this in-person convening. The annual interim narrative and expenditure reports are as follow. They will be due October 31st of this year, June 30th of 2025, and May 29th of 2026. The annual final narrative and expenditure report will be due January 31st of 2025, January 30th of 2026, and October 30th of 2026. Next slide, please. We will have check-in calls between us and our funded grantees, which will be occurring on a quarterly basis during the duration of this grant. We will potentially have, we're aiming for in-grantee in meetings, whether it's in person or virtually, community events, etc. And those will be happening as applicable. And those will be notified once we establish them and begin the grant cycle. Participation in technical assistance activities, including webinars, virtual courses, peer-to-peer learning, will also be happening on a quarterly basis during the duration of this grant. Site visit and audits by us, AU, are not to be anticipated. However, we do have the right to conduct site visits or audits as needed. The completion of surveys required by us, AU, will happen on one annual all grantee survey, so once. Now we will begin talking about budget restrictions. Grant funds may not be used for the following: medication or purchasing of medications, direct medical expenses like lab expenses, existing deficits of the grantee, any basic biomedical research, or clinical trials. For individuals, prescribing authority, individual healthcare providers, or physician group practices, events, or programs that have already occurred. projects that directly influence or advance Gilead's business, including purchase, utilization, prescribing, formulary position, pricing, reimbursement, referral recommendations, or payments for pharmaceutical products. Indirect NICRA expenses outside of the percentage noted in the grantee's approved budget. Any direct or grassroots lobbying. Organizations that discriminate based on race, color, gender, religion, disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression are not eligible to apply. Now, how to apply? So we have, just as the pre-application, two options. You can either apply through a written form, or you can submit a pre-recorded full application. The written application will be submitted via AIDS United's online platform application, in which the link will be inserted into the chat. It is due at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on May 16th of 2024. Questions do not have a word limit. However, applicants should aim for written responses to the application narrative questions to be no longer than 5 pages, single-spaced with a 12-point font. Applicants can submit a pre-recorded video that is no longer than 45 minutes in length, responding to the application narrative questions. Video should be uploaded to the AIDS United online grant application by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on May 16, 2024. Applicants submitting a pre-recorded video will submit the required attachments in the grant portal. Us, the AU project management staff team, are available up until 5 p.m. Eastern Time on May 16th to help troubleshoot any issues that may come up for you all as you are submitting. And a community-based review committee will be evaluating your full application. Now we'll begin talking about our timeline, which will look familiar to you as these were presented to you during the pre-application webinar. So today we are conducting our full application webinar. Again, friendly reminder that our full application will close May 16th by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Data funding notification will be launched on June 28th of 2024. Our grant period will begin July 1st of this year, and our grant period will end September 30th of 2026. And our grant cycle is as follows. It will begin from July 1st to December 31st of this year. Year 2 will be from January 1st to December 31st of 2025. And year 3 will be January 1st from September 30th, 2026. And now this is our Q&A section. If folks have any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat or in the Q&A box that should be in your right-hand side.
And if you would like to speak verbally, you can go ahead and raise your hand and I can push the button to allow you to talk.
Hi, good afternoon. So my question is, would it be limited to the location where we are when we're looking at the population that we're tracking? Would it be like we're in South Florida? Would that mean like only women in South Florida, or could it be outside of the area where we serve?
So I think it can be the area where you serve, as long as you write that in your application.
Can it be beyond the area that we serve?
I would say that you can make a case in your application, and then it'll be up to the grant review committee to review and score your application.
Okay, thank you.
Carly, in the chat, there is a question from Rita McDaniel. It asks, is melanated? It's melanated, so we can include men. And the answer is no, it's a Melanated Movement Fund for Black women. The other question is, what is the earliest date a project can start? And so you will receive your notice of award, as Marcel mentioned, by June 28th for the latest. I think if we can get them out to you sooner that last week, we will do that. We hope that your projects can start as, at least the planning of your project should commence right upon your approval or your notice of award. The other question is, how many team members will be funded to attend the grantee meeting? At this point in time, we have budgeted for 2 staff from each of the 5 grantees who will receive a notice of award.
It looks like we have a question in the chat. Can we tell them how many orgs are applying for this grant? I would say I can tell you that 5 organizations will be chosen to receive funding.
And we received over 71 applications with organizations interested in this funding.
We have another question. Is this a one-time fund, or is there a possibility of continuation after the 3-year grant period? Further, we include, one second.
So if you could supplement funding to support your project, I think that's how I'm reading it. You know, I think we're always seeking additional funding at AIDS United. At this point in time, we are committed to this 3-year cycle for the Melanated Movement Fund and the 5 grantees that we will be awarding.
Looks like we have another question. If we are a fiscally sponsored organization, should the budget information be completed by the fiscal sponsor or the organization applying? And you know what? This is a perfect time to invite my colleague, Bianca, as well onto the stage to talk a little bit more about if you all have direct application questions as well. But to my colleagues, is this a question that's better suited for us or Bianca?
Sorry, tell me the question again, Carly.
Yes, of course. If we are a fiscally sponsored organization, should
Yes.
the budget information be completed by the fiscal sponsor or the organization that's applying?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would anticipate that it's the organization applying will complete the budget, and then you can discuss it with your fiscal sponsor. It depends on the relationship you have with your sponsor, but you should be the one completing your budget.
Yep, looks like we have another question. Our program caters to the POC, MTF, and FTM trans community. So all individuals within the trans community. Would we be aligned with the grant requirements? I would say I think so, but I'm gonna pass it to my colleagues.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah.
This fund is supporting Black, cis, and trans women.
Great question, Tamara. I think that is, yep. All right. Let's recheck the chat. Does anyone else have any questions for us?
There is a hand.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, this is, okay.
Yeah, yes, I have a question about the question on the application about evaluations. It's asking how are we going to do the evaluations, but then the application also says that we'll be getting technical assistance to do the evaluations. Can you provide some more information, like how best to answer that question about how we're going to be doing evaluations?
So yes, thanks for that question. We have an evaluation staff person at AIDS United who is part of the Melanated Movement Fund, and she's going to provide technical assistance on all of the activities that we would like you to have clients participate in as part of the evaluation. So if you have experience with evaluation activities, I would certainly include that as part of your application because it demonstrates your experience with evaluation.
Looks like we have another question. When applying, should we apply for the entire 90 or just what we're needing for the grant? My recommendation is I would say apply for the whole thing. I will pass it to my colleagues to see what they think.
Yeah, you can apply for the full amount of 90,000 or you could apply for what you need.
If they don't apply for the full amount initially, will they be able to receive any unexpended funds for their site specifically, or do you think that money might be allotted to
Reallocated.
other things, right?
Yeah, it could be reallocated to other activities
For the site or outside of the site?
outside of the site. So as Carly said, 90,000 is the max you could apply for. If you choose to apply for $70,000 over the 3 years, that is the amount that you will be awarded.
Let's see, we have another. Can the funds be used for project and programs as well as capacity building and operational funds? So I'm thinking the question is, how restricted is the money that we're receiving?
Yeah, so on the slide deck, we had a list of restrictions, and that's what you should follow when building out your budget.
Oh, on my way to,
I think, Miss
or
Wright Mir, do you still have a question? Your hand is still up. Okay.
No, sorry, I don't have another question. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
and can we go back to the
Yep.
thank you?
Yeah. Right. Can you see those? Okay. So in terms of the budget restrictions, funds cannot be used for medications, direct medical expenses, any biomedical, clinical, or research or clinical trials. You cannot use it to support staff who are prescribers. You cannot use the funding to advance any business by Gilead because, as you all heard in the first webinar we had, Gilead is the funder for this initiative. And then you cannot use it for other expenses outside of your approved indirect or NICRA. You cannot use it for grassroots lobbying, and an organization that discriminates folks based on race, color, gender, religion, should not be even applying for these funds. So those are the restrictions that we have currently.
Yeah, and can we maybe we can land on the how to apply. And I know that Bianca is here to give us a little more guidance on what the application process will look like. So we can set up the stage for Bianca to hop on and share a little more, and then we can revisit the Q&A after. I do see that Dorinthia has another question, and I'm sure others will have questions regarding the application after. So I'll pass it to you, Bianca, and then we'll get back to the questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Carly. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Alicia. I'm just going to go over briefly how to, just the steps that everyone will take to submit an application. Just going to share my screen really quickly. Can you all see? Yes. Okay. So the first part of this process is that everyone should have received an initial email with a link to your unique application. So every application, your application.
Bianca, can you make this bigger?
Yeah, of course. Let's see. Is that bigger? I'm going to scroll down.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. Cool. So everyone should receive a unique invitation email. It has a link to your application, and the link that you receive is unique to your application. So this is a preview of what the email looks like. The subject line is invitation to apply, Melanated Movement Fund. It has some text here saying congratulations, should have your organization name, and the amount that you had applied for in the pre-application. And if you scroll down a little bit further, there's a link to start your application. Now you'll want to come back to this email whenever you want to go back to your application and make updates. You don't have to do it all in one sitting, as folks on the call explained earlier. All of your progress should be saved as you move along through this application. But just so you know, this is the email that you want to save. You want to hold on to it until you're fully submitted your application. Next, this is what it looks like when you click on that link to your application. So first, there's an initial landing page with some background information about the Melanated Movement Fund. You'll want to scroll down further to the bottom and see this arrow on the bottom right corner. Just move along. There's some notes about the application that we want to highlight. So like I said earlier, you can always come back to your application, but you have to be on the same browser and on the same computer. Your responses should be automatically saved. Let's say you're working on this application with a colleague, or there's more than one person working on this. Just make sure that you put in all the answers on the same browser, on the same computer, because if you forward that email to your colleague and they open it on their computer, they'll get an error message. So just make sure that you keep it all in one place. There is a back button feature, so you can go and move throughout the application back and forward until you submit it. There's no word limits within this application, but you should aim to have your responses to the narrative questions be no longer than 5-10 pages single spaced. And you should definitely prepare your application responses in a Word document or something similar, just so you don't lose your work. And applications should receive a confirmation email that includes a link to view or download a copy of your responses after you hit submit. So let me show you what the application looks like in itself. I know some folks in the call have already started. That's great. But if you haven't started and you're seeing this for the first time, let me just walk you through the whole thing. So first, there's going to be some questions that are carried over from your pre-application. So questions like your organization name, and other details about your organization's location. You have the option at this point to either hit no change, the information looks great, or you can hit update and say, you changed your address, or maybe there's a different, address that you have on record. All of these fields right here where it says you entered, there will be information that you submitted in your pre-application. So this is blank right now because it's a demonstration, it's just a walkthrough, but when you're completing your application, you should have these areas filled out and with your organization's information. So we're just going to go a little bit further along. No change, no change. I filled out this application before we got on this call, just so we could get through it a little bit faster than otherwise. So there's more questions about, your primary contact information. We have the chance to update at this point. If you have a fiscal sponsor, we'll also ask you to fill in some information to confirm that the same information that you entered in your pre-application is still true. And then a few more questions about your fiscal sponsor if you have one. Okay, next is the application narrative. So there are just a few questions here that we'll ask about your unique project. Okay, and after you finish the narrative portion, there's the attachments section where you can submit the documents that we ask for related to your proposal. There's a quick video that I included here on how to change a file that you've uploaded. It's just a quick demonstration of how Qualtrics works, because there, as you can see on this page, there's no X button or a button that says remove this file. So what they want you to do is if you uploaded the wrong file or you want to upload something else, you just have to click this anywhere in this gray space, this rectangular box here. Click it, and then you'll have the choice at that point to re-upload another file. So you can't remove a file that you've uploaded, but you can replace it. So these are those attachment questions. These are all going to be requirements for your application. And then the next page of the attachments are the optional or attachments that don't apply to necessarily everyone. So there's a fiscal sponsor agreement. It's required if you have a fiscal sponsor. And then any memoranda of agreement or letters of support are optional at this point too. If you move forward, Qualtrics will ask you. There's if you'd like to continue without answering, you can always hit continue without answering if you don't have anything to upload in those spaces, and I'll let you move forward. Next, just enter the email address of where you want a copy of your application responses to go. And the last question is asking if you're ready to submit your application. If at this point, I would recommend, going back and reviewing your responses at least one last time to make sure that, everything looks good to you. This is what you want to upload. And like I mentioned earlier, you can always go back and forward throughout the application using the arrows. So at this point, we've reviewed all of our responses. We're ready to submit. So we're going to click yes, and then move on to the next page. And it should give you this message. We thank you for the time spent taking the survey, and a copy of your application responses are going to be populated below. You can download it as a PDF at this point. And you'll also get a confirmation email. This is what it should look like. A confirmation email with a copy of your responses as well. So I would recommend folks look out, make sure that they get this confirmation email, so that way that we have your application. And yeah, those are all the steps that it takes to submit a full proposal. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. But yeah, happy to take your questions. And I'm always here. You can email me at grants@aidsunited.org. Myself and my other colleague, Hannah, will be checking that periodically. If you have any questions as you're going through the application, any technical questions, anything that doesn't work right or seems off, feel free to email us at that email address.
Thank you, Bianca. Please put any questions in the chat. Looks like we have a question from Lynette. Oh, you know what? Before we go to you, Lynette, I'm sorry. Dorinthia had a question from previous, before we did the application run through. Is there a specific thing you all are looking for when applying that will deny or approve besides the restrictions that are named here? And also another request to see the restriction slides once more. Team? Right there.
Yeah, I'm here, sorry. So to Dorinthia's question, Dorinthia, you are proposing a project to serve your community, and we would recommend that you justify your budget based on what your project design is. We have a community review committee who will be reviewing the applications, scoring them, and based on the scoring from the review committee, that will help us with determining the 5 organizations that will receive a notice of award for funding. Lynette's question, if a site isn't approved for the full amount, would you tell them how much they will receive? Yes, we would totally do that as part of the communication and the notice of award. All right, I will share that slide again.
Yes, and I will share a PDF version of the slides after the event as well. If you did not receive a TA webinar reminder from the movement email previous to this, please send me your email directly in the chat, like a direct message to me, Carly Gray, in the chat with the email where you would like to receive these this PDF copy, in addition to any other relevant individual who would be involved in this grant application process within your organization and you would like them to receive the PDF as well. You can message Carly Gray directly in the webinar chat. Don't send your email to everyone, just me.
All right, so these are the budget restrictions again. The first one is these funds cannot be used to purchase medications or any direct medical expenses, including lab expenses. You cannot use the funding for biomedical, clinical research or clinical trials. Any prescribers at your organization cannot be part of the staffing plan that requires funding. Projects that cannot be funded that are going to advance Gilead's business. As we mentioned previously, Gilead is the funder for these Melanated Movement Funds. Indirect and your NICRA expenses outside of the percentage noted in your approved budgets. You cannot use funds for any direct or grassroots lobbying, and organizations that discriminate based on race, color, gender, religion, disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression are not eligible to apply. So as Carly said, we're happy to send you a PDF of these slides. That way you have these restrictions right in front of you as you are completing your proposal.
So we do have another question in the chat that asks about AU being a fiscal sponsor and any mandatory language around that. Is this a grant that would require AU to be a fiscal sponsor of an organization in order for them to accept the grant award?
So AIDS United will not be a fiscal sponsor for anyone that we are funding.
Thank you. Let's see. Am I missing any other questions? Or is anyone raising their hand that wants to come off of mute? Alrighty.
I think
Does
we have some emails in the for you, Carly. So that's great.
Okay. All right.
Nice.
Sounds good. I am gonna go ahead and make sure I have all these emails noted. It is my hope that you all saw the email about opening your invitations. Once again, it's really important that you use the specific application link tied to your invitation for the full application in order to submit a successful full application for this grant period. Once again, the link is tied specifically to your invitation that was sent via email. So if your primary contact for the application was information inbox or general share inbox for your organization, please be sure to make sure it doesn't get deleted and that it is accessible by you and your other colleagues who may be working on the grant application. Any questions for Bianca? Thank you, Connie. I see your message and I will note that. All right. It looks like we're just getting some thank yous for doing a great job on another TA webinar. Thank you all for showing up. We look forward to seeing your grant applications, and I'm sure the grant review committee is just as thrilled as we are. And thank you for showing up. We hope to have that YouTube link to you all soon. I will also include the emails that were sent to us in the email when I send out the notification that the YouTube video is ready. But once again, you'll receive the PDF before close of business today. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Marcel and Alicia and Bianca.
Thank you,
Happy grant
everyone.
writing.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, thank you.